Hi guys, we're an interesting video on Wild Rift. And today we're back with yet another episode of Wild Rift Fundamentals, which is our series for newer or more inexperienced players who just started out the game or may not know too much about the game yet, especially if you're new to League of Legends or Wild Rift. So today we'll be covering the runes of the game. And we've already covered pretty much all of the items. Now we're going to be going over the runes. I'm not really sure if we want to do one for spells because majority of the spells are pretty obvious, but we'll see about that. So been doing a lot more of these Wild Rift Fundamentals videos lately because a couple of my friends started playing the game, so this is really helpful for them. Anyways, we're going to go rune by rune. So the first rune we have is Electrocute. So hitting an enemy champion with 3 consecutive attacks will cause this lightning bolt to hit the enemy, which is not dodgeable, and it does have a cooldown where you cannot just proc it every 3 attacks or spells. So this in general is an assassin rune. So before I get into that, I probably should mention I'm going to be covering the keystones first, then the domination rune, resolve rune, then inspiration rune. So this is the first of the keystone runes. This is generally of course used on assassins because it does increase your overall burst damage, of course with the extra electrocute damage. And in general, it's a very good laning phase rune because you will get a lot more will get a lot more damage in your laning phase against your opponent. But generally when you get later into the game, it becomes less and less good because you can only proc electrocute onto one person. And it doesn't really help you against, like, in a team fight. It does help you kill one person, but aside from that, it doesn't. So really, you kind of only use it on assassins who kind of want to assassinate that one person. So next is Airy. Now, Airy does 2 things. First up, when you attack enemies with it, it will send the Airy to deal slightly more not slightly more damage. It will send the Airy to deal a little bit of damage to them. The other way it can be used is if you heal or shield an ally, you send the Airy to them, which will give them a shield. So it does scale with AD and AP. Of course, Electrocute also does scale with AD and AP. Something to note, it has a 25-second cooldown, does Electrocute, and Airy has a cooldown, which is the time it takes for the Airy to travel from your opponent or your ally back to yourself. That's the cooldown, but the cooldown is very short, probably like maybe 2 seconds or so. Yeah, so there is 2 main uses of Airy. First up is on poke champions in lane. You might want to take Airy to just increase your poke damage. Something like a Malphite or Teemo sometimes does opt into an Airy. Aside from that, the next obvious one is healing or shielding supports like Janna, Nami. Might want to opt into Airy to increase their healing and shielding capability. So those are the 2 groups of people who take Airy. Now the next rune is actually Phase Rush. So hitting a champion with 3 attacks or abilities gives you a large burst of movement speed as well as slow resistance for the next 4 seconds. Now, this rune doesn't actually give you any combat stats at all because movement speed isn't really combat stats. It doesn't give you any defenses, any like damage, any AD or AP. So really, nobody really takes this rune. Like when it was first introduced, you would think that champions like, for example, Graves, Tryndamere, or Darius, who kind of want to stick onto their enemies and chase them down, will benefit from it a lot. Or control mages like Orianna, who need it for a bit of extra mobility. But really, at this point in time in the meta, nobody really uses Phase Rush at all because generally the other runes are just better options than Phase Rush. But yeah, if people were to use it, it will be those people who want to chase people down or mages like with no mobility that need Phase Rush for a slight little bit of mobility. Next is Conqueror, which is by far the best rune in the game. Basically, if anybody who can take Conqueror will take Conqueror, even on like assassins. So basically this is mainly used for DPS champions like ADCs. It's also used on fighters like, for example, Riven, who stay in the fight for a long time and can stack up the Conqueror easily. But Conqueror is such a good rune that even assassins take it. Like, for example, like some people even take Conqueror on Kha'Zix instead of taking Electrocute, and same story for Evelynn. Some people take Conqueror on Evelynn instead of Electrocute. Basically, the rule of thumb is if the champion can take Conqueror, just go for Conqueror. Of course, if you're playing like a tank or a support, generally you don't go for Conqueror, but if you're playing the other roles, if you can take Conqueror, you generally will just take Conqueror, basically. So what Conqueror does is whenever you hit an enemy with a basic attack or a ability, it stacks up Conqueror, and stacking up to 5 times. Each stack gives you some AD and some AP, and when you reach max stacks, you actually get bonus adaptive damage to champion. So basically, it just gives you a lot of extra stats in general, so that's why it's just simply so good. Now, Fleet Footwork, what it does is it's kind of like a stacking system, sort of like how momentum works, or sort of like how energized attack works. When you reach a 100 stacks, your next attack will give you a heal and increased movement speed, which of course does scale with AD and AP as well. So, this rune is generally used on either jungle champions who have very unhealthy jungle clear, so that they have a little bit of a healthier clear with the heal of the jungle monster, or it is used for lanes that it's a very hard matchup. For example, especially in Baron lane, if you have a very bad losing matchup, you might some people do opt into Fleet Footwork just so that they can get that healing, so that the matchup becomes a lot better. Now, the only other group of people who take this are people who are extremely mobile with a lot of dashes. For example, Vayne, because dashes will also help you to charge up the counter at the bottom, so it will stack 200 stacks faster on a super mobile champion like Vayne. Whenever you tumble, you will stack your Fleet Footwork, which is why Vayne also kind of wants to take Fleet Footwork some of the time. So basically, it's either for junglers with unhealthy clears, for top laners who have bad matchups, or like for mobile champions in general. So Grasp of the Undying is basically normally taken by tanks. The only exception that I can think of is Senna, who sometimes takes Grasp. So basically, this rune is actually a little bit complicated to understand, which I didn't actually really understand it at the start, only after I played with it a bit back when I first started the game that I knew how it works. So basically, Grasp works is when you are in combat, your grasp will start stacking up. After you are in combat for 4 seconds, your grasp will fully stack, and then you have to auto attack a champion to proc your grasp stack. So when you proc that grasp stack, you get a heal for 2% of your max health, which is very useful if you're a tank. And then you permanently increase your health by 5. So that means every time you proc your grasp, you get more health. And therefore, the next time you proc your grasp, you'll be getting an even better heal. Which is, of course, very good on tanks, because tanks build health items like Sunfire Aegis, which will, of course, make grasp even better, because you will be getting an even chunkier heal. So you also will deal bonus damage based on your maximum health. So that is also a factor, and of course on ranged champions it is reduced by a lot, by 40%. So mainly you take it on melee champions who are tanks, normally in the Baron lane. So Aftershock is another tank rune. So for Aftershock, it's after you CC an enemy, you will gain defenses, which is, as you guys can see, 35 armor plus 60% of your bonus armor, and 35 magic resist plus 60% of your bonus magic resist for 2.5 seconds. And then after, I think it's like 2 or 3 seconds, you will kind of just have a AoE attack around you where it will deal a slight bit of damage. It does scale with your max health, and it has a 20-second cooldown. So this is mainly used on like tank engage supports and other tanks who basically is normally used on tank engagers, like whether be it support or top laners. Generally that's what they take, just simply because this will give them the defenses to sort of survive the engage and get back out of the fight. Tanks like Thresh, tanks like Leona love to take Aftershock. So the damage really doesn't matter that much. You're not taking this for the damage, you're taking this for the increased defenses, so it's not for the damage at all. So, and it has a pretty long cooldown, so it's not for a wave clear or anything like that. It's simply for the increased defenses. So the last one is Font of Life. So Font of Life is when you hit an enemy champion with any of your attacks or abilities, you will mark them. And when you or your ally attacks that same marked champion, they will trigger the mark, which will cause you and your ally to be healed. So the heal amounts, as you guys can see, ally heals 6% of your max HP plus 30% of your AP, and for yourself is 2% of your max HP as well as 10% of your AP. So the mark lasts for 4 seconds, and it does have a 6-second cooldown for melee champions and 10 seconds for ranged champions. So if and there is this thing where subsequent heals from other allies' marks are reduced but to 25%. So this is basically so that we don't have multiple people in a team taking Font of Life. So generally you only have one Font of Life user in the team, and in general this is a support rune because it is really only beneficial in the dragon lane where there is someone next to you who can constantly proc your marks and benefit from your heal. So it's basically a support rune taken by mainly enchanter supports, but some other supports like Braum take it as well. Now something to note about this is that this heal does trigger the effects of support items like Ardent Sensor, for example, which will of course help you proc it easier. So yeah. Now we're gonna actually move on to the domination runes. So first up is Brutal. So Brutal, basically it's a early game rune that doesn't scale at all. So at the start of the game you get AD and Armor Pen or AP and Magic Pen. So it used to be like a very good rune, but now in modern day normally the other options are better. So it is like the default go-to rune if you don't know what to take though, because it basically you can never really go wrong with more AD and AP. Gathering Storm gives you a gives you either AD or AP every 3 minutes, and it of course only starts. I believe it's only last time it used to actually describe that it started I think only like 8 minutes into the game, but now I think they reworked it and now it starts 3 minutes into the game. So you get scaling AP, scaling AD and AP, which increases your AD and AP by like 2, 5, 9, 14. So something to note is that for this to outscale Brutal, of course not inclusive of the penetration, generally it takes 9 minutes. So this rune is a very slow rune, and Wild Rift is a pretty fast-paced game. So in general, this rune is not very good. Of course, if you're playing a champion that is horrible in the early game and it's only good in the late game, a champion like Senna, this is a pretty good rune. But other than that, this rune is pretty much it's pretty bad, and not many people take this rune at all. So next we have Hunter Vampirism. It's a very, very good rune, normally taken by almost every single ADC. Basically you gain 2% of physical or magical vamp, and every unique champion takedown you get gives you either 2 extra AD with another 1% physical vamp, or 4 AP with 1% magic vamp. So basically in total, if you stack it up to the maximum, you should be getting 7% 7% of either physical or magical vamp, and as well as either 10 AD or 14 AP. So basically, you get you total get a lot of vamp, and you also get more AD and AP compared to Brutal if you fully stack it. So this is one of the best domination runes. Next we have Triumph. So Triumph, almost no one takes it. Basically only like reset champions take it, like Darius or Katarina. Basically when you kill someone, you restore 10% of your missing health, and you deal 3% more damage to enemies below 35% health. So as you guys can see, dealing extra damage to enemies who are low is really good for reset champions, and of course getting health back when you get your reset makes it even better. So basically champions that want to reset like Darius and Katarina take this rune. Other than that, like no one goes for this rune. Weakness is the main sort of rune that supports take, or anybody with CC who wants to help out the team takes, but generally it will be the support. So impairing the movement of an enemy champion causes them to take 5% more damage in the following 5 seconds. So basically if you CC somebody, your whole team is going to be doing more damage to them. And take note that this applies to soft CC as well, like slows. So Ashe can proc this as well. However, when it comes to something like Aftershock, only hard CC will proc it because you have to immobilize your enemies. So next we have the final one, which is Champion. So Champion, basically at the start of the game you gain 8% bonus damage against enemy champions, and you lose 4% each time you die. So basically when you die twice, you basically have no domination rune at all. Now this is actually like a pretty high risk, high reward rune, but if you really think about it, if because of this rune you get a kill or two in lane, and even if you die twice later and you don't have this rune anymore, this rune can still have a lot of value because it gets you that initial 1 or 2 kills, which can help you snowball the game. So actually, even if you lose the benefit of it, it can still be very valuable, and this is generally an okay rune to opt into for any damaging champion as long as you're willing to sort of like take the risk. And This rune is generally taken, despite saying that, this rune is generally taken by characters who can play safe, champions like Ezreal and Varus, who generally don't die too often in the early game. Of course, as I said, you can still take it on like basically all of the Baron lane champions, because of course that 8% more damage is going to make a huge difference in the Baron lane 1v1. So in general, basically any champion who does damage can opt into this. Even tanks, like last time the tank Garen used to take this to deal even more damage. So basically any champion who wants to deal more damage can opt into this. It's just what is your risk appetite, like how much are you willing to risk. Because if you like just die twice in the early game and get nothing out of it, you basically have no domination rune anymore. So anyways, we're going to move on to the resolve rune. First one is Adaptive Carapace. You gain 50 health, and when you're below half health, you gain either 12 armor or 12 magic resist based on which kind of damage you took more of in the past 60 seconds. So this in general is a very good Baron lane rune, just because it helps out a lot in the 1v1, giving you more health and more armor or magic resist depending on what your damage profile of your opponent in the Baron lane is. Aside from this, this is mainly a lane kind of rune, because generally it's only going to really be good in lane when you're trying to get like 1v1 kills, because in the later stages of the game, likelihood is that the enemy will have both types of damage, so this doesn't really help against the other type of damage. So if this rune triggers for armor, it doesn't help against magic resist, so this is really mainly for the lane and to win lane. So mainly it's a good rune for Baron laners. Conditioning is sort of the same story as Gathering Storm. Basically you gain 8 of each defense after 5 minutes into the game, and every 2 minutes later you gain 2 MRN defense. It's good on almost nobody really, because it takes way too long to scale into anything useful. Although, as I said, if you're playing those kind of late game champions like Senna, like some Sennas take conditioning, but other than that, if you are playing a tank and you anticipate the game to be really long, it's based on team comp or whatever, you can opt into conditioning, but most people don't take conditioning. Hunter Titan generally is the best rune for the resolve tree. So basically you start off with 20 health, and every unique champion takedown actually gives you 20 more max health and 4% tenacity. So after you get all 5 champion takedowns, you will have 120 extra health as well as 20% tenacity, and 20% tenacity makes a huge difference against CC. So really it is generally the best option if you don't know what to take in the resolve tree, and really good for really just any champion. Basically it's the best rune in this tree, and if you're not taking anything else, you should just take Hunter Titan. Now, second win is yet another one that is really good for laning. So you gain 5 health every 5 seconds, so it helps you with your sustain. And after you take damage from an enemy champion, you will regenerate 3 plus 1.5% of your missing health over the next 10 seconds. And this effect is doubled from melee champions. So you will see some Baron laners take this, especially because the majority of Baron laners are melee, and it's a very intensive 1v1 lane. So this is really mainly just for the sustain. But not too many people take this, to be honest, just because really like Hunter Titan is pretty much like the best rune by a country mile. So loyalty normally is a support rune. You basically gain 2 armor and 5 magic resist, and your closest ally gets 5 armor and 2 magic resist. So really good in the bot lane, especially against a dominant, where AD is more dominant than AP in general. So just a general good support rune if you're not taking anything else. Last one we have is Bone Plating, which is a counter to burst damage. So how it works is, after you take damage from an enemy champion, it will trigger the Bone Plating. So you'll see like 3 like green translucent like what I think looks like a rat head symbol revolving around you. So basically your next the next 3 attacks that are used against you, be it an ability or a basic attack, is going to deal it's 30 to 60 less damage based on your level, and this rune has a 45-second cooldown. So really this is a very bad rune, because even when you're fighting against burst champions, it's very easy to play around this rune by just auto attacking or using a spell to prompt the Bone Plating, and in the 45 seconds that it is down, you go in as per normal, just that the Bone Plating will not be there. So it's a very easy rune for your opponent to play around, and it's very hard for you to prevent your Bone Plating from being procced, just because of it's very hard not to take any damage from your opponent and not proc your Bone Plating. So it's a very bad rune for laning phase, but it is good on 2 particular types of champions. First type of champion it's very good on is very long range champions. Champions like Varus, who in general are very far away from the opponent. Varus, Ziggs, who is also like normally very far away from your opponent, and maybe even Ezreal in some occasions, but not really because Ezreal's range is kind of pretty low as well. But most people don't take bone plating. The second group is actually junglers, because junglers don't have a lane opponent and jungle monsters do not trigger bone plating. So when you are going into a gank, basically when the moment you get damage from the enemy champion, you will trigger the bone plating, but in this case they don't actually have a chance to proc your bone plating and back out of the fight and then come back later to fight you, because you are ganking and they have no choice but to fight you. So they're forced to fight you with your bone plating on, so it's really beneficial to you. So in general, it's only taken by junglers or by long range lane champions. So now we move on to the final one, which is the inspiration tree. The first one we have is Pathfinder, which gives you 9% extra movement speed in brush, jungle, and river when out of combat. Keyword here is out of combat. So if you're fighting someone and you're chasing them, it's not gonna proc. If inverse, if you're getting chased by someone and you're in combat, it will not proc as well. This, needless to say, it's only taken by junglers to, of course, rotate faster and get from camp to camp faster. So it actually used to be a very unpopular rune, but now it's actually getting very, very popular because the jungler's tempo is very important, and getting around the map quickly will, of course, be very important as well. So it's getting more and more popular, of course, only taken by junglers, so you can opt into this if you like to, move around the map faster. But the thing is, taking that takes out the same slot as Mastermind, which of course will be a trade-off. So Mastermind says, attacks and abilities deal 10% true damage to epic monsters, 10% bonus true damage, to epic monsters, and 10% bonus damage adaptive to turrets, as well as allowing you to earn an extra 120 gold upon taking or assisting in taking these objectives. So in general, this is only taken by junglers. Like last time, it used to do true damage to towers as well, and used to be taken by some split pushing Baron laners like Jax and Camille. But because it is competing in the same zone as Sweet Tooth, which we will cover later, we will, basically now it's only taken by junglers, because every laner takes Sweet Tooth basically. So anyways, we're gonna first talk about Mastermind. So of course this is very useful for junglers to, of course, do more damage to objectives and burst the objectives faster to, of course, secure them faster. And also good if the junglers happen to go and take turrets. So normally laners don't take it because, as I said, they go for Sweet Tooth instead. But if they did, it's really it really improves their turret taking capability. Champions like Jax, Camille, or Fiora, who love to split push, could be beneficial. Next we have Hunter Genius, which of course you gain 2.5 ability haste, and each champion takedown gives you another further 2.5 ability haste. So total you can get out of this is 15. Generally, 15 ability haste is pretty good, but as I said, it's competing with the same spot as Sweet Tooth, so not many people take it, because if you're a laner, you'll take Sweet Tooth. If you're a jungler, you'll choose between Mastermind and Pathfinder. So really not many people take Hunter Genius at all. The only exception is in ARAM, where you can't actually take Sweet Tooth. So most people take Hunter Genius in ARAM. But in regular matches, Hunter Genius is generally not really taken. Now we get into Sweet Tooth, which is probably the most strong rune in all of the inspiration tree. So Sweet Tooth basically gives you increases their honey fruit healing by 25%, and when you or nearby allies eat honey fruit, you gain 20 gold. So basically every laner takes this. The top laner, the mid laner, and the AD carry takes this. The only people who don't take it is the support and the jungler. So pretty much this rune is just OP, because the gold from the Sweet Tooth is useful. Of course, that's about a minion's worth of gold for free, and the extra healing is very, very helpful for lane, whichever lane you're in, whether be it mid, top, or ADC. It's just really, really helpful to have the extra lane sustain. So pretty much is the best rune for that. Pack Hunter is generally a support rune. When you're an ally champion, you gain an extra 2% movement speed, and for each unique ally you participate in a takedown with, you gain 50 gold and your ally gains 50 gold. So basically, it's, as you guys can see, it's basically just a support rune. The only kind of person who might want to just troll and take this is Singed, but even Singed normally just takes Sweet Tooth. So basically this is a support rune that gives you and your allies more gold for each unique takedown. So basically in total you can gain 250 gold, and each and your allies, whichever combination you have, can total gain 250 gold. So the movement speed 2% is not a lot, but a lot of supports have no other better option than Pack Hunter, so they just go for the Pack Hunter, because they can't really take Pathfinder and Mastermind and Sweet Tooth. So basically for them, it's between Pack Hunter, Hunter Genius, and Mana Flow Ban. So the last one, as we have just alluded to, is Mana Flow Ban. So Mana Flow Ban, hitting an enemy champion with an ability or an empowered attack permanently increases your mana by 30 up to 300 mana. So you only have to proc your Mana Flow Ban 10 times to max stack it. Now, Last time mana mune or like archangel staff users used to actually take mana flow ban quite a lot, but it's not really the case these days. So basically, mana flow ban is meant to alleviate your mana problems, but in reality, if you're a laner, you normally would just go for Sweet Tooth anyway, because the honey fruit gives you mana. So this Sweet Tooth gives you not only more heal, but you also gain mana from that. So generally, you would just go for Sweet Tooth instead. The only group of people that generally take mana flow ban are actually supports who are mana hungry. Normally, enchanter supports, like for example a Nami who uses a lot of mana, normally likes to opt into a mana flow ban just to have more mana to cast more spells. Junglers don't really take mana flow ban unless you're playing a very mana hungry jungler, but there aren't no jungler really takes mana flow ban. Generally, it's a rune for enchanter supports in general in the current meta, because for most other people, Sweet Tooth is just simply better. A lot of the runes in Inspiration are good, but it's just that all of them are very badly outclassed by Sweet Tooth because Sweet Tooth is just simply so strong. So anyways, we come to the end of discussing all of the runes. So thank you guys for watching this video, and goodbye.